MyCallCloud, we keep your calls clear. Support so smooth, your clients cheer. Smart tech powering your team all day. MyCallCloud, the cloud call away.
Raymond Stover, welcome back to the podcast studio.
Thank you, Noah. Good to be here.
Happy Monday.
Yeah, man. Happy Monday. It's a good week.
It's a good week. Well, we got a bunch of topics to talk about today. First of all, you forgot your fun shirt. I just want to bring that up. I said, bring a fun shirt. This is my fun shirt.
But this is MyCallCloud. This is a fun shirt for me. You know?
It can be a
I
fun
get to
shirt.
go in public and tell people how we support, call center. and it's always a fun thing to be, in, the social circles when you're talking about what you do. And they're like, oh, you're supporting those people that keep calling me.
I know. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of bad players out there. And we put a lot of effort into making sure that our people that use MyCallCloud are doing it the right way.
Well, that's right. We're a small organization. We know our clients. We know the people that have come and gone through our doors who were, doing the mass calling that didn't really respect the traditional. They want to go with their way of dialing, and it's abusive.
It is. And there's this whole trend with know your client, know your customer, right? Banking, all the way to us, right? We are supposed to know our customers, which we've always done. It's just inherently, we don't just provide service to people that say, I just want to dial.
That's right.
Well, what do you do? How do you do it? Are you doing the right things? Are you not doing the right things? What are we talking about?
Right. And sometimes we say we're not a good fit.
Yeah. Sometimes we're not a good fit. That's okay. They can go over to Convoso.
Or to others, yeah,
or
absolutely.
Yeah, not to call it anyway.
And they could go with their IVR campaigns, and a lot of Americans do not want to have an IVR automated message calling them. They want to talk to real people.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a bunch of cool topics to talk about today, and one of the things we wanted to cover is cybersecurity, right? And what just happened last week? That huge data breach, 16 billion logins and passwords were leaked. And we don't know the exact details of it because I don't think the exact details have been released about that.
Right. Well, I
did
know that
some reading on it, but
part of it is it's a roll-up where some of those usernames and passwords that were found were part of a previous breaches. So it's more that somebody has, taken things that are new and combined with others. But the thing is you add that up, they're talking 16 billion accounts that are now available on the web.
First of all, we know how hard it is to move 1 million records from one thing to another. So 16 billion records from multiple data sources. First of all, it makes me think that this may be just some falsehood, right? That's being pushed out. I don't know for sure, but 16 billion records is hundreds of gigabytes of data. Hundreds.
Yeah, how are you going to process that? How are you going to sell that on the dark web? How are you going to transfer it? Yeah.
How do you get it out of their network? How do you get it out of Mac or Apple network and Google network? How do you get it out of the network? That would be, multiple days of transmit time, unless it was a hard drive, right? Unless somebody plugged something into a server and then copied it all to a hard drive. We just don't know. What we know is that the news and some of the media outlets in the tech world are touting a data breach. We just don't know what the reality of that is.
Right. Yeah. And it's a good touch point for us as humans and end users. We should keep our passwords safe and secure. We should update them. But on the larger scale of things, we also need to keep moving forward, and we need to not be distracted by, something that may be a bit of a non-issue.
As secure as Apple and Google are, right? As secure as they tout they are. Like, how did Apple lose passwords and logins for people? How is that possible? And how are they not encrypted? They should be encrypted in some way, shape, or form, right? And if they're not encrypted, why aren't they encrypted? So hopefully, fingers crossed, those passwords were encrypted. Now, maybe the usernames aren't, but at least the passwords, hopefully, are encrypted. And same thing with Google. Like, how is that possible? So I'm just scratching my head, and I'm looking through some of the tech forums and trying to read up on this data breach and how it affected, how it was even possible. And they didn't really say what the vulnerability was or how the data got out. It's just what the impact of the data was mostly the scope of the articles that I read. So again, that brings me back to, did it really happen? Or is this just a scare tactic so everybody goes change their usernames and passwords? Because there might have been some legit information that got leaked out. Who knows? I can only imagine the fallout of this after, people, if people do get affected by this, what sort of legal fallout is going to happen to Google and Apple. And there was 3 or 4 other providers too. And how did the breach happen to all those other providers?
It doesn't seem to.
It doesn't pass the sniff test. Excuse me. It doesn't
Yes.
pass the sniff test for me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
1 billion from Google and all these others at the same time. It makes you wonder.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly, it raises the larger subject, right? As AI is gaining prominence and people are getting more hands-on with it and they're able to build tools with it, there's going to be some people that are out there that are looking to utilize those pieces of information and plug them into a model and try and process and see what they can open up, what they can gain access to.
Especially if they unbreak or jailbreak the AIs, right? Because you're not supposed to be able to do malicious things with
Right.
these AIs, right? You're supposed to be able to have it assist you in white hat operations, not necessarily black hat operations.
But identifying where you have access and where you don't have access, there's a starting point. And
Yeah. Or I mean, let's just run through a scenario that just popped in my mind. Maybe the AI says, or maybe you ask the AI, you prompt it to build a tool that seems like a legitimate process, but then you can flip it and then make it a black hat process.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. You can have it help you build that base code.
Yeah. Help me find the usernames and passwords in my ecosystem throughout the entire domain, and then capture them into a data stream that heads off to wherever, South Africa,
Yep. Collect that data, put it on a
Jamaica, or wherever the data is headed.
Netherlands or wherever it may be. Yeah.
And they have the logs of probably where that data ended up, right? Especially if it's transmitted over wire. They're doing some network logging there. At least those big companies are. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Hopefully they are. Who knows? Who knows if there's any syslog for any of that data? And syslog, for the nerds out there, they get what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So that was a
Logging
big
activities.
one that came up, and we run a closed ecosystem at MyCallCloud. We don't really do single sign-ons with Google or any of that. So really, our users and passwords here are secure for the companies that use MyCallCloud. I'm not really concerned about this data breach for us internally, but externally, customers are going to have some issues, right? With their own ecosystems inside of their own networks, and hopefully that's not the case, right? Fingers crossed. Hopefully they, people have got this story and they've started changing their Google and Apple and all the other key prevalent pieces of information.
Right. Yeah. And many times people do not change their passwords for years.
Yeah.
And every now and then a family or friend will say, "Oh, can you help me with XYZ?" And okay, well, I need you to plug in and I try and hand them their device and try and have them plug in their, "Oh no, you just plug it in." And it's something, it's like 4 characters and 2 number dates. Like, oh, well, that's probably when you graduated high school. I could maybe guess at that. And
I know. So here's an article. We're just going to cover this real quick. Cyber News. 16 billion passwords exposed in a record-breaking data breach, opening access to Facebook, Google, Apple, and any other service imaginable. Well, what does that sound like to you?
that sounds like scare tactics to me.
Scare tactics.
Yeah.
Any other service imaginable. Okay. All right. And then as a nerd, I'm thinking through, okay, if that data breach were to occur, how could that data have left any other service imaginable? And the only other thing I can think of is if there was a man in the middle attack on ISPs, right?
Right.
Possible.
And they get in the middle, they see everything.
Yeah.
And they have access. Right. But that's pretty rare, and that's
Almost
pretty
impossible,
sophisticated.
especially if they're encrypted, right? End-to-end encryption, especially all the major modern browsers these days are all using some sort of encryption algorithm end-to-end. I mean, ISPs might see the payload, but they're not going to be able to decrypt the payload unless they have the keys in order to do so. So I don't know. I don't know for sure, but this feels like a scare tactic to me. I mean, yee.
Yep. But, it causes us pause to think. 1,000 of them were, a billion of them were Google's. Well,
I mean,
gee,
I know. This list, I don't know. I don't know. I guess we'll see. Big data index. Are they using third-party providers to store this credential?
Well, that's a lot of data to store.
Yee.
Yeah.
But listen, if this is the true thing, right, and it's multiple sources, it just seems like a scare tactic. It just seems unfathomable. One company here or there, okay, I get that. Apple got all their passwords hacked. Maybe. Possible.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right with that title of that page.
Mm-hmm.
And any service imaginable.
Yeah.
Come on, that's right there. You have to throw it out. That's like that.
Doesn't seem accurate.
That's right.
Yeah, I know.
But it raises the larger scope of conversation for security, right? We got to have secure processes. We're in an industry with telcos and communications and consumer data, and we have to be careful with everything that we touch. And
exactly,
we make sure that everything is encrypted and behind
and it's
firewalls
in our ecosystem.
here.
Yeah, it's protected. We have a good process in place. We follow a lot of the certifications, the SOC 2, SOC 3. We don't allow people to get to our network that we don't know. And I think that's really what's helped us out a lot in the past is making sure that wherever customers are coming from, we capture their IP addresses and we whitelist those, and nothing else can really come in, right? Because we know there's many providers that have had issues with denial of service attacks, and we hear certain providers are going down multiple times a month. And that's a problem.
It is.
Right. And their network team is, probably scrambling at those moments where customers are like, I can't log in, the server's too busy or whatever. All right. Then we're going to roll into AI integration, and we're going to combine two topics together, agent, burnout and attrition. And we're going to talk about AI and how that can potentially help that agent burnout process. Because we've got customers that are like, hey, are you using AI? And we are using AI in a number of different capacities. One of them is after call recording, going through, thousands and thousands of recording to determine, what is being said, converting that to text, speech to text, and then analyzing those speech patterns within that language model to then come up with either a better pitch or better rebuttals for, if somebody has an objection, whatever those cases might be. That is one use case for AI. And then other use cases are, sending data directly to an AI bot, right? And creating a voice bot that then identifies what's being said and then how to respond in a natural way. And not perfect yet, because we just talked about this, this morning, but it's going to get better, right? And people are right now, in my sort of overall high level estimation of how well these AIs are doing, about 30% at this point are getting hung up on, or they're not making it through a call flow process because people are picking this up on a human level, right? They're understanding.
So yeah, absolutely. The call analytics piece, that's been here for a while. A lot of call centers have been relying on early versions of large language models for being able to capture the important data, right? You got to ingest the recordings and transcribe it, and then look for lifting up keywords and phrases and looking for opportunities. That's one of the beauties of the call analytics, is not only can it help guide agents through and help managers identify when there's problems, but it can lift up important business aspects that people are not picking up on, the AI can pick up on. It's like, oh, well, because they are an HVAC customer, they could maybe benefit from a call in the fall time, and we can, do a reconditioning service or a service maintenance on the furnace. That way you don't go into the winter months, and, it's
Great example. For
that's
sure.
There's many of them. That's just off the top.
Well, and it's going to really help sales teams and HR and training and those types of things to say, oh, okay, well, the sentiment of the call should feel like this. Your calls, and I'm just going to, whatever, Agent Smith, right? His calls sound like this, and that's why he's not closing or guiding customers through a support process or whatever the call is. This needs to change for Agent Smith, right? And they'll have very specific bullet point details, bring up the weather, don't bring up the weather, whatever it might be to help that individual, make through a more successful calls.
Absolutely. And there's different analytic providers out there, and they have different solutions. Mm-hmm. And some of them are prompting the agents. Some of them are communicating with the agents after the call, right? Mm-hmm. You said this. In the future, try and say X, Y, Z, because, future or past calls have informed us that, when you talk about this, people are more open to, continuing that conversation. And so there's a lot of value that comes out of these call analytics solutions, and AI has improved that. It was okay to begin with.
Right.
And people were, the Fortune 500 were spending $100,000 a year plus
a month.
To get in some cases,
in some
yes.
cases, yeah.
Yeah, just to get a little bit of lift in their sales analytics and to help improve the customer satisfaction and the overall statistics is what they're going for. It's interesting. There's a lot of different providers out there with different solutions, and we're seeing, when you were talking earlier, it reminded me of in the call center industry, we've seen technology, right? We went up into the T1s, like, oh, let's go get a T1, get away from those copper lines and the DSL. And then the next one was the voice over IP. And there are all these call centers that, I read about, I want. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing that same sort of pattern again with the AI. Ooh, I want.
That's the next trend.
That's right. I want to be able to help. And you started out this whole bit of conversation was talking about the agents and the agent attrition and the agent burnout. And I think everyone will agree that call centers can be a bit of a grind. They can be a difficult work environment. And there's a lot of studies out there. People have found that, it's pretty obvious. If you're getting beat up on the phones, your morale is not going to be the highest.
Right.
And that's one of the beauties of AI, right? AI doesn't, you start putting in an AI agent in place of a human where it makes sense, that AI agent is not going to get tired. That AI agent is not going to be down in the mouth because it's been yelled at 3 or 4 times consecutively. It's just going to keep on going. It'll answer the phone and it'll progress through the conversation as it's been instructed to, doing its best model to present to the prospect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the AI agent's going to answer after 30 calls. It's going to sound exactly the same, right? It's not going to have a down attitude. It's not going to be, coming back from lunch depressed that they got to sit down in the chair for another 4 hours and try and grind out 2 or 3 more, positive conversations or collections or sales or, whatever it might be.
Yeah,
right?
The humans, they're being so driven by the pressure of the call center to perform. Go get the collection. Go get the sale. Mm-hmm. And you had made a comment earlier about after hours, and that's a great application, right?
Yeah. If you want a 24-hour bot to sit on your customer support line or your inbound qualification, intake line, whatever it might be, as long as there's a scripted environment that bot can kind of follow, it can service your calls late night. It can service your calls early morning, right? It can make sure that your customers are being attended to, but you're not burning out a human resource doing that. And you're also not wasting HR dollars or, human resource labor dollars on bringing somebody to the call center at 2 a.m. to answer 1 call, right? 2 calls, whatever it might be. But those calls might be important.
That's right. Well, there are people that work during the night shift and then they come free or they're on their lunch break in the middle of the night and they want to do their business. And if you can service them and answer their call, and these AI bots are informed by tens of thousands of prior phone calls. So
Right.
in the right environment, you train them up. Absolutely. They can service the clients all hours of the day.
I kind of joked a little bit. Last week we were chatting about this. I think we were sitting at lunch and I said, at some point, we're going to have an AI bot here at MyCallCloud to take an early morning call because a customer needs to create a new agent and they forgot how to do that. Or they need to start a new campaign and they forgot how to do that. Well, we have we have APIs that do all that. We just need the AI to tell us what API to trigger to help that customer out. Hey, create a new agent with user level 8. Then they have permissions to these campaigns, right?
Yeah. You said it half tongue in cheek.
I did.
But the writing's on the wall.
Reality is
3 years from now, you could.
It's there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know 2-3 years. I'm thinking like by the end of this year, I might even have a little AI bot to just say,
thank you for calling.
thank you for calling. What are your topics that you need to discuss? And if it's something really simple that we can keep off of our tier 1 group, maybe we do it. And we just offer it to our customers as an additional service. Hey, at 2 in the morning,
we don't have to force it. Yeah.
At 2 a.m, they need to call, and I'm thinking about this project. I want to get it ready for tomorrow morning, but my call cloud's not on. I forgot how to do the thing to create the thing that I need. And maybe we just provide 4 or 5 simple options: create a campaign, create a new list.
Well, we have our knowledge base, right? There's the client side of the knowledge base. There's a lot of common questions and responses there and there's a lot, we have ourselves, we have thousands and thousands of recorded phone calls.
Absolutely.
We could send it through and let train up the LLM and.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up that. We record our calls for quality assurance, and we can run those through an LLM and figure out what people need to do the most, and then maybe put that thing in front, say, what do you need to do?
And we can train it up.
Train it up. And then it's immediate service. You're not waiting for a human being to answer the phone. Okay. Well, that being said, it might not be this year, but maybe sometime in the next 12 to 24 months. Yeah.
And in the grand scheme of things, we extrapolate that for the call center industry.
Right.
I've been saying a fair bit that agents, as we know it, by and large, the bulk of agents, given time, they're not going to be needed. These AI bots are going to take care of the frontline customer service, the basic questions that are asked. And
exactly.
Absolutely. And so, within a couple of years, maybe, we don't know the timeline. AI is growing exponentially fast.
Yeah.
And so some of these agent positions, and we're seeing it here at MyCallCloud, right?
Yeah.
Some of our clients are already using AI because they are looking to the future. They know that if they are not competitive, the Fortune 500 and the Fortune 1000 and others are going to beat them to the punch. And so they want to be at the cutting edge, and they are testing these AI agents. And with time, they are going to be successful. They will replace 80% of their 70%, 80%, 90% of their agent staff. That HR bill and all those HR headaches, they're going to go away.
I know. I mean, and maybe like for a Fortune 500, maybe the call center isn't such a big line item in their budget, but maybe it's 3 or 4 or 5 or 6%, whatever it is. Maybe it's 20. Who knows? Depending on the company it was. Like Home Advisor was a great example. They have 1,500 agents in Home Advisor, right? Doing the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Just scripted call, walk through the script, customer service. On the sales pitch side, I think the customer service side is going to probably be where AI, and we can already see this, right? Even in chat bots and things of that nature, it's sort of taking mainstream, right? I can get immediate service from an AI chatbot from CenturyLink, for example, or Lumen, or whatever they're called now. I don't know how many times they've been bought and sold, but you can reach in and say, hey, I'd like to order a new service, or I want to change my service. And the AI bot can just walk you through that whole process, right? And then, oh, would you like to just talk to a customer service? Would you like to talk to a sales representative in order to, place your order? All the information has been pre-gathered for that salesperson and then piped into their, online interface so that they understand who the customer is, what I'm interested in, what my timeline is, and, they can just schedule the human being to come out and install the product. Right.
Yeah.
So,
or whatever that next step is, right? The AI does the front line, sort of the grunt work, identify what the needs are, what are the information points, the data points that are needed.
yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And we're doing that right now, right? The AI bot is doing the qualification call, and then it's transcribing and it's summarizing. That way the agent that receives the call, they receive a summary of that conversation and the highlights of what's important.
Yeah.
And that way they don't have to wade through 3 or 4 paragraphs or pages of data. They just get a summary, like you say, right on their interface, that front screen.
And if I were to guess, I'm guessing just that front end AI bot is saving the human being taking the call on the other end, maybe 20, 30% of their time trying to gather that information. And then we were talking about the other day, can you repeat that? I didn't hear you correctly. Can you repeat that? Right. It's getting rid of that. Right. So if you're saving, what were you saying? We were, 7 minutes a call or whatever, over 1,000 calls per month, that adds up really quick from a human being perspective. So that human being can continue to service more prepared calls versus, identification of who you're talking to and what their needs are.
Right.
So
Well, and this is, the energy level, right? It's not back to the grind asking these same repetitive questions. It's jumping right into it. And, that's what some of the people are saying is that with AI, it's going to make us have to work a little bit harder because, in that sort of instance, all the preliminary easy stuff has been identified.
Yeah.
And now the agent has to actually roll up their sleeves and make that sale happen. They're not wasting their time with the basics.
But they're getting softballs too, right? They're not getting these really hard conversations where, they're having to go through all this qualification stuff. Right?
That's right. You're right. Because people have identified that they want to move forward with the process. They've not hung up on the AI bot. They completed that leg of it, and now they're going into the human. And, like we had seen before, right? Some of these, the younger generations will say, I don't want to talk on the phone.
Right.
Unless there's something I want to talk about, and then I will. If you cue it up, just like you say, I'm sort of thinking the tee ball. You put the ball on the tee, you get the kid up there, the softball, right? Softballs. You're just queuing them up, and those agents can go.
So it might make
swing.
a human agent work just a little bit harder, but in that same essence, they're going to have higher opportunity to close, higher opportunity to service that particular need with a higher percentage. Right.
Yeah. Jump right into the conversation, not have to worry about pre-qualifications.
And maybe it increases the agent's productivity so much that they go over certain sales tiers, or they go over in certain support coverage tiers or whatever, and they get little bonuses from that.
They could be happier.
It could be very symbiotic, right? So AI is not going to, and I think for quite a while, AI agents aren't going to take over the call center. They're starting to integrate slightly. But I think there's probably a 3 to 5 year ramp here where we're going to see, tweaks and adjustments and AI getting better, but not totally being able to service every call. Right?
Absolutely.
So always going to be people involved.
100%.
Yeah.
I think
for
2 to 3 years, 5 years, absolutely.
Yeah, quite a while.
So it's not, but there's disruption coming.
There is disruption
absolutely. So.
I know. Omnichannel, how does it plug into Omnichannel, right? How does a bot plug into all the things that we do as well? SMS, email, MMS, text, multimedia texts. All this stuff can also integrate to our channel, right? To what channel does the bot need to engage to this particular customer? Or how does the agent get the bot to engage in an action that needs to be taken related to an Omnichannel presence, right? Getting a confirmation text out. Well, an agent doesn't have to do that manually, right? That's automated typically on the back end, but maybe the bot also adds value there, right? If you have trouble with your appointment, click here and we can reschedule your appointment, right? And that can tie back into a CRM and reschedule people appropriately and do that type of stuff. So it's going to chime into that omni-channel presence eventually. Again, that's going to be a ramp up. But
absolutely. But it's just a matter of programming and setting rules in place, right? If it's garbage in, garbage out, well, you give it good information of what you want it to do and you set the rules forth, and if there needs to be a follow-up SMS message,
Yep.
absolutely, we can automate that. We're already doing that to some degree with some machine learning, and it's just a hop, skip, and a jump to turn that into AI and let the AI make the decisions based on, more advanced rules and prior history, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of opportunity there to grow and improve the whole, and it's interesting. We improve the customer service experience too.
Right.
It's interesting. I don't know. You've probably heard, people in your social circles that say, I called into XYZ. I hear it about once every couple of weeks. And of course you hear it both sides, but I called in and I had a really good experience with XYZ.
Right.
And actually, I think I'll throw it out there. It was Wells Fargo. It was a Wells Fargo employee or customer that had been with them for many years, and they called in for something that they thought was relatively simple. They'd have to talk with an agent.
Yeah.
And it was AI managed, all except for the last bit for the confirmation. She said that was such a good, clean, smooth experience.
That's good.
And it can happen, right?
Oh, yeah.
But,
for certain use cases where they fall into these funnels that the AI can really service well. If it goes out of the funnel, you got to get it to a human being.
And that's just part of smart programming, right? You don't let all the agents go. You identify that this person needs to speak with a live human, and we just barge the call out, drop it in the agent queue.
Yeah, exactly.
There's agents waiting and ready to take that call because they know it could be money in the box.
Exactly. I heard this, it's not a tagline, but I heard this phrase the other day. The next $1 billion company can be started by 3 people. So I mean that's coming, right? AI is going to help with the design and development of the infrastructure required, the API metric, or the API calls that are required, and then hook in the AI bot in order to service whatever is required there. And who knows what they're going to do with marketing and sales and all that. But we might all be out of a job. Everybody.
Well,
except for 3 people.
Well, there's definitely there's going to be disruption, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. And I think the tagline that I've heard that's been reverberating in the back of my mind is, yes, AI can replace your job, but it's not going to replace the person that's running the AI.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like another analogy that Matt and I talk about. It's the robots are going to do all of the things, but you still need somebody to repair the robots, right? Unless there's a robot repairing robots. Who knows?
With time, that's going to happen.
One of these guys repairing robots, right? Who knows? And they'll know how to do it.
Well, that's right.
Incredibly well, right? Probably not with a hammer.
Maybe with a bigger hammer. No, but that's all known information. The specifications for the Roomba, the little vacuum cleaner that's running through my house. I mean, I could envision a world where
Did you get one?
we haven't.
You haven't took that leap yet?
Well, all those
well, we had one in the office for a while. And that thing was okay. But it didn't cut mustard for very long. It obviously failed out, but that thing was, version 1. Picked it up from Costco. It was some sort of screaming deal. They're just trying to break into the market, right? And I'm sure they sold it for a loss. They definitely didn't sell it for any profit. But it was okay. It didn't really know how to learn the room. There wasn't enough sensors there. There was just a bump sensor in the front. There was no optical sensors. There was nothing to scan the room. There was no radar. There was none of the wave pattern sensors that they're putting in now, where it's going to map your room and then come up with the best plan to clean it,
And how to deal with obstacles and unexpected.
But it does that now, right? They do that now. And I haven't dove down the Roomba path again and grabbed a new version yet, but I'm assuming at some point you will never have to sweep or mop your floor just from that one little bot doing that one specific task really well. You won't have to put anything by the stairs. It's going to know the stairs are there. It's going to know there's obstacles that it can't service, right? It's going to keep away from those obstacles, cords or wires or whatever is laying on the floor, whatever it is, right? It just gets better and better. And then it's going to teach itself how to do better. And then it's going to upload that data. Of course, they're going to be Wi-Fi enabled and connected to if you want that. And then it's going to feed their ecosystem with all the information that it learned about how to clean your house better. And then all the other bots are going to learn from that. So that's kind of a wild concept to think about, bots teaching each other how to do better things, better tasks. So,
crowdsourcing of data. And look, right? Tesla, right? Robo-taxi, Tesla.
it's coming.
Well, I think it just was released in Austin.
Oh, Austin's getting Tesla robo-taxis?
And where did they train that, get that data from?
Yeah.
That's training data that they've been collecting from
all their drivers across the country that have probably generated a brand new map of the United States of every road that a Tesla is driven on, a GPS coordinate. When a Tesla had a problem, obviously that's an obstruction and that gets removed from the data set, right? That's not allowed for the Tesla taxi service.
Yeah, this has been identified as a dead end, so don't send the vehicle down that direction.
We got to look this up. Tesla taxi service. Let's see what's on the webs. Yeah, Austin. You're right. And then, of course, we can't get like normal Google articles anymore. Everything is an AI response. Tesla has launched a limited self-driving taxi service called a robo-taxi in Austin, Texas, using Model Y vehicles. This initial phase is restricted to a select group of invited Tesla enthusiasts and investors with a human safety monitor in the vehicle for now.
I didn't see that part.
The service, which relies on Tesla's full self-driving technology, is part of Tesla's broader plan to expand its autonomous ride-hailing service. So I heard Rogan the other day talking about this, and he goes, dude, they're not going to let anybody drive anywhere, right? The only thing you're going to be able to do is take a taxi.
Well, given time.
Maybe in major metro, 20 years from now, the only thing you can do in that major metro within 5-mile radius, whatever it is getting one of these.
Well, the inner city, yeah. I mean, we're already seeing that. European cities are already starting to ban vehicles within the inner city. Yeah, I mean,
vehicles in general.
Yeah,
so yeah, the taxis service the community. Never park anywhere. Always go back to home, charge, get back out for the next 12-hour shift.
Doesn't get tired. Just go and pick up that next fare.
Makes $500 a day. What do you think it's going to do for Uber? Like the Uber human drivers?
Well, I think, the thing is some people will want that and some people won't. It's a classic thing. Some people want the AI, the new technology. They want to test it out and see it out in firsthand. And that full self-driving, it's been very interesting watching the capability of full self-driving over the years. My parents have a Tesla, and I speak with them a fair bit about it. And, it's very interesting how through the months and through the years, they've talked about how full self-driving has gotten so much better.
And it's gotten better with their particular model. They've gotten like updates rolled in and patches and whatever.
Right, and they're an older couple, and they drive only specific routes.
Yeah,
and they recognize the full self-driving in earlier versions had an issue at this location, had an issue with this type of scenario, and those scenarios are falling away. And now on their routes, they're now to the point where they just get in the car, tell it where to go,
get out of here,
and they are
really
hands off, 100%.
Oh my gosh. How often do they do that?
A lot.
Yeah.
Surprisingly a lot. And, when you think about it, in the wintertime, snow, short days, longer nights, difficult to see.
Yeah.
Snow, ice, rain, you get the low visibility conditions. It's almost a no-brainer.
Because they're up in the mountains still, right?
Yeah. That's right.
That'll be interesting.
Did you notice...
No, that was going to say it's going to be interesting related to the weather. If snow and ice, how's it going to accommodate that? And clearly, it's learning.
Oh, and it knows the position of the road better than us humans.
Than your eyeballs. I know.
That's right.
Down to the inch. Probably down to like a few inches, I suppose.
Yeah. It's not going off the side of the road. It's not crossing over the yellow line. It's doing its job. Did you notice that Tesla does not have a lease program, right?
No.
You know, you cannot buy, well, there's a lease program, but you cannot buy that Tesla back.
Oh, you can lease it and not buy it.
You can lease it, but you can't buy it. And then
They
it
get
goes
all-
back to Tesla,
They get all the data.
right? They get all the data. Well, and they also can build their fleet,
Yeah.
build a really big robo fleet that way.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm on the fence here. If I'm coming back from a trip and I'm at the airport, do I want to talk to an Uber driver at 11 at night and really have any sort of human conversation or interaction? Not that you have to, but typically from a human being to another human being, there's usually some sort of interaction related to how's the weather, what's going on. And maybe you don't want to talk to anybody. You just order one of these things and it picks you up and takes you home.
Yeah. Or you're sick, or you're scared of getting sick, right? You've been out of country
Sure.
you don't want to pick up a cold as you're driving home or riding home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want a driverless taxi to get me home. I'm in a foul mood and I don't want to catch somebody's cold as I'm going in to see my family.
Now, did they ever take it for the mountains to the airport?
Yeah.
And do they do full FSD, full self-driving?
They do,
Yeah.
but there's times along the way where they'll put their hand, they'll take control.
Yeah.
I'd say they take control 3, 5, 6 times on a trip, a 4-hour
Unreal.
trip.
Wow.
But it's getting better. And that's really the bottom line. When I talk to them, it's consistently improving.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the model with AI, right? It is training itself and it is learning, and these neural networks and their ability to retain that information and learn from it and improve.
Yeah. When I'm thinking about how Musk put this together, right? So he's got Tesla. Great. Tesla's out. Then he launches Starlink and gets all the satellites up so that the cars can chat with the satellites. I'm sure that they're not subscribed yet, but there's probably some chatter back and forth. Oh, I see a Starlink. Here's my data. Just guessing. Don't know for sure. And then on the very, very back end, he throws in an AI, LLM, to absorb all that data, make it better, and then send instructions back to the car. Upload this. Here's a firmware update. Oh, we know you're having problems at these 5 intersections. Here's the patch, or whatever, right?
Yeah, well, it could be watching traffic patterns and identifying larger traffic patterns that other programs, the maps and the Waze and whatnot, that they might not be seeing.
In some ways, his sort of structure and infrastructure growth is similar to what we're going through, right? There's a lot of parallels there, right? The LLM is going to tell the human beings how to do better, and also tell the AI bots how to do better, right, on voice calls.
Right.
So the parallels are, obviously we don't have Starlink, but, wouldn't that be fun if we had our own network in the sky that anybody in the world can access? That'd be kind of interesting.
And you don't have to worry about weather, and you don't have to worry about location, physical. You be in the middle of the desert,
Yeah.
middle of the mountains.
And now I think Apple iPhones are doing connections to Starlink too, right? Yeah. There's a Starlink chip or something that they're putting in there for GPS.
Well, and I was just going to say GPS,
satellite
right?
communication.
Yeah, well, that GPS technology is old. It's easily spoofed. Bad actors could easily spoof.
Right.
And,
All right. Now, what happens when Elon's like, stop all the cars? You have a couple
you think
million
he has a red
Teslas.
button? Oh, yeah.
Oh, he probably does. Right. I remember when Uber got in trouble for this early on, when they had a global view of all the cars that were driving, all the Uber drivers. They called it global view or whatever. And he could see any driver driving any person in the world. That was a little intrusive. Do you remember that story?
Creepy. No, I don't
You don't
remember
remember
that
that
story. That was a good one.
Yeah, it was the Uber. It wasn't like a scandal, but it was like an Uber global view hackathon. No, it wasn't that. Global view. What was it? Scandal. I think it was a scandal. It was early. It was pretty early on. GodView. That's what they called it. The Uber global view scandal refers to a controversy surrounding an internal Uber tool called GodView. This administrative tool allowed Uber employees to track the real-time locations of customers and drivers. And I don't remember what year that was. It doesn't say. But yeah, that's a real thing, right? So it was tracking, drivers and customers without their knowledge. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's collecting data.
Yeah, Uber collects data too. I'm sure they built their own map infrastructure based on the drivers that Uber had, right? And this was pre-AI, right? So they're capturing all that data. Anyway, this whole like trend that we're on right now is fun and wild and crazy. There's a lot of hype, right? There's a lot of hype here. I remember when people wanted to do ringless voicemail, right? And there was a lot of hype around that. So I don't know, man. This will be an interesting year for us, and certainly next year, I think we're going to see tons of different AI implementations, all different kinds of implementations for AI, including there was one that we had dealt with a few years ago with Balto. Shout out to Balto, where they were providing LLM direct feedback to the agent using a little installed application on the
real-time feedback
on the tool, and that's pretty cool too. So there's and I think that's matured as well, not just for Balto, but for a lot of other service providers. So that'd be interesting.
Balto was leading the charge in that regard.
They kind of were, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like for us, they are facing new competition, right? You can get 3 guys and start up a new business. And,
I know.
I want to start up a call analytics solution business and I want to sell it to call centers.
Yep. And a zero install tool would be nice, right? And maybe they have that at this point, but maybe they don't. So.
And we're just at the tip of the iceberg. Right. This AI, we think we know, but, there's so much we don't know. And the developments are happening so quickly and the capabilities of AI that, we're just at the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely. All right, Ray, any other topics you want to cover?
Oh, we're good. Thank you for your time today.
Good Monday. Thank you for your time. Guys, if you've liked this content from MyCallCloud, please subscribe. We'll keep doing this on the weekly or at least every other week, and make sure that we're covering topics that are, pertaining to the call center and pertaining to probably AI, right? Because that's a thing right now.
So feel free to ask any questions and we will respond appropriately.
Exactly. All right, everybody. Goodbye. Talk to you soon.
See ya.